Once upon a time, there was a little boy at the age of 3 started to play his first video game. Realizing the amount of fun of his new favourite hobby, he then went on to play quite a lot of video games growing up. He then decided at the age of 19 that he wanted to collect and obtain not only all of the past games he's played, but also some of the best video games to ever been released. Trust me, this story does have an ending. What I'm trying to say is that I probably would not be here if it wasn't for the first video game character I have laid my eyes on. Crash Bandicoot. 1996 was a pretty cool year for video games. We saw Super Mario 64, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Mario Kart 64, and of course the other game we're talking about in this video, Crash Bandicoot. Being developed by a team of Naughty Dog, a hungry gaming producers at the time wanted to stand out in the gaming community. Sure, they've made other games in the past, but none of them really gotten them to bigger heights. Then with the arrival of Universal Interactive Studios and with their big contracts, they signed Naughty Dog and they worked day and night to create Willy the Wombat. I'm not even joking. In early production, the name they were going for was Willy the Wombat, only as a temporary name so they can come up with something better. Then just before releasing a demo, the team decided to name him Crash Bandicoot, and you probably know the rest from here on out due to its history. So we will be discussing about Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation 1 and slowly but hopefully working our way down to other Crash games developed by Naughty Dog. I know it kinda seems like I'm re-reviewing some of these games, but kinda think of it as a re-look, if you will. Kinda going through the game all over again, but a much more updated feel. To be completely honest, when it comes down to choosing which Crash game from the original trilogy I feel like playing, I always go, yeah, let's play some Crash 2 and 3. But as for Crash 1, I go, well, I'll just leave it aside and see if I feel like playing it. I always seem to ignore Crash 1 all the time, and today, with any luck, I'll be able to explain why. But for now, let's begin. Our story for everyone's favourite orange fluffy boy kicks off at a castle when we see our main villain for the game and the entire series, Dr. Neo Cortex. Along with his sidekick and Brio, they experiment with different animal creatures and giving them superhuman strength. The next subject Cortex was working on is a Bandicoot, and despite the warning Brio tries to give, he ignores him and tests out the Bandicoot anyway in the Cortex Vortex. The Vortex denies Crash Bandicoot and manages to escape just in time. Afterwards, Cortex decided to experiment on the female Bandicoots named Torna. Because Crash and Torna have grown a bond together while being taken, Crash Bandicoot makes the decision to go after Cortex, stop his plans, and save Torna. Now when you look at it, the story does share some resemblance from the story of Super Mario for the NES. Bowser takes Princess Peach hostage and it's up to Mario to stop Bowser and save Peach. But comparing the story to Crash Bandicoot isn't a big complaint, and the story overall is pretty simple to follow. Just a simple beat the main villain and get the girl. Average in superhero movies, but still pretty effective. The character designs are pretty good, even if Crash's body type looks like an upside down Dorito, but other than that, I do like the designs of the characters. Especially Torna's, which she's definitely got my attention. Oh man, is it getting hot in here? The gameplay structure is what you would expect. Going from A to B, using your spin attack on enemies, platforming your way around objects, and collecting items. One of the items you can collect are Wumpa Fruits. They are your coins for expanding your life count. If you do collect an extra life token or 100 Wumpa Fruits, you'll get an additional life. They can be out on the open for you to see, or inside these boxes you'll have to break. But however, if Crash loses all of his lives, you'll get a game over and have to start again. The main item to collect are gems. You earn these by breaking all the boxes in a single level. the game will tell you if you have collected a gem or mention that you still have boxes to find and hit. Hey, great job, but you missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But other than that, you did great. There's different boxes you'll see along your journey. You have your standard boxes, but also checkpoints, extra lives as mentioned earlier, jumping boxes with arrows pointing up, invincible boxes that you can't break, and finally the TNT crate. When you bounce on it, a timer will count down. Once it reaches the 0, the TNT crate will explode, so you might want to take a few steps backwards when that occurs or Crash will get hurt. You also have 2 keys to collect as well. You can earn them by completing a Cortex bonus stage. Crash Bandicoot does have protection, and I don't mean that as a one night stand. I mean protection from taking damage. A mask named Aku Aku joins in the battle and will help protect Crash from harm. Crash can hold up to 2 masks, but once collecting the 3rd mask, Crash can be invincible to any attack for a limited amount of time. It's really useful to have in your arsenal in case you run into more tougher situations, but during my playthrough, I noticed something a bit off with the invincibility. I'm not sure if I discovered a glitch or something, but I do know that this part caught me off guard. But that's some of the gameplay features. How's the graphics? Well, for a game that was released in 1996, it looks really nice. I like the different shades of colors, and the 3D animation looks pretty good. At a time where we were transforming from the side-scrolling 2D animation to a more 3D animation to when the camera is behind the character, I say this was a commercial success at the time. The level designs here are again pretty good. You can visit and explore places like the islands, rivers, caves, Cortex's castle, and many more. And there's also the part where your heart is pumping very rapidly during a bridge level when you're trying to complete a jump and hoping you don't fall to your death. While Crash Bandicoot may do some platforming, but there are at times the gameplay does change. One of the levels involves riding a hog to complete a level. The music hits, the nostalgia feels very hard for me, even though I didn't play this game at all as a kid, but when I hear that tune, I know exactly where that's from. It sounds really catchy. From start to finish, I say the soundtrack is consistently good. But since we've covered all the good stuff about this game, it's probably fair to mention some downfalls. Up first, the controls. They have not aged well, unfortunately. At times, I don't feel like I'm totally in control of Crash with each jumping, and again, the bridge level does not help out. While I'm at it, the camera placement in some levels are pretty awful looking back. I feel like when I'm jumping from one platform to another platform, I'm pretty much hoping to God that I make it, rather than sounding confident in myself. It feels like at times I'm under jumping or over jumping. Naughty Dog definitely have improved the camera and the controls in later games, but for the first game in the series, there was always going to be some minor errors. As for the difficulty, man, sometimes this game can be brutal in terms of challenge. I would say the first Crash game is, no second thought, one of the hardest games in the original trilogy. The game's focus is platforming, and it makes sure that you are aware of that. It starts off slow, holding your hand and guiding through some platforms, but later on, Crash Bandicoot 1 just literally throws you in the water filled with sharks, hoping that you've learned enough and sees if you can sink or swim. This game is hard, but its design is built with patience. You cannot just simply walk into a level and let your emotions get to you if you keep failing. You have to think clearly and understand the patterns, and then, only then, you will complete the level. It is difficult, but not impossible. And speaking of brutal, some of the checkpoint placements in later games can be pretty tough. So you jump into a level, go through endless of difficult platforms, and trying to avoid death as best as you can. Then all of a sudden, you make one tiny mistake, lose a life, and just like that, you start the level all over again. I'm guessing it has also frustrated a few gamers back in the day. Let's talk about the bonus stages. In each level, there's a bonus stage you can partake, and the way to unlock it is by collecting 3 character tokens that features either Torna, Embryo, or Dr. Cortex. Once you have collected all 3, then you'll be transferred to a bonus stage. Some of the bonus stages are easy at first, but then gets challenging as you move on. If you complete a bonus stage, or even earning a gem, you'll be able to save the game. Which I kind of find it weird that that's one of the only ways to save the game is by completing a bonus stage or earning a gem. Why not just save the game while you're in your hub worlds? Well, I have no idea. But however, if you fail during the bonus stages or fail to get a gem, you cannot go back to it unless you restart the level again. And that must have been frustrating back in the day. But hang on, this gets even better. Remember how I talked about the gems and earning them by breaking all the boxes? Well, I only half explained it and wanted to only mention the other half in this section. Not only you have to break all the boxes to get a gem, but you have to do it without dying. So for anyone that wants to 100% this game, if you die in a single level, you might as well reset the level all over again. And this is where the challenge in terms of grinding truly takes place. Sure, finishing the story is one thing, but it's a totally different ballgame when you have to collect everything. So good luck to all the completionists out there. As for the bosses go, I love the different variety of bosses. You have the tribe leader in Papu Papu, the crazy and deranged Ripperoo, the very beefy and muscular Koala Con, who'll probably get a contract in WWE by the way, and the gangster himself, Pinstripe. You also have Embryo and Dr. Cortex as the bosses as well towards the end of the game. But most of the bosses here are pretty easy to defeat. You just need to learn the layout and what movements they take, then before you know it, you pretty much have beaten that boss. I think my favorite one would have to be Dr. Cortex, due to that soundtrack you can listen to, and he is rather hard to beat at times if you're not too focused. My not so favorite ones are Papu Papu and Pinstripe, as all you do is perform the same thing over and over to defeat them. So once you beat Cortex, you save Tawna and they ride off as the game ends, hopefully seeing more of Tawna in the next game. Spoiler alert, she's not in the next game. I think it's because she was too revealing for the younger audience, which I can understand why. And if it wasn't for that, we may never have seen Coco in future installments. And one of the cool parts about this game is once you have collected all the gems and the keys, you can actually skip the entire boss battle of Cortex and Tawna will be waiting for you to make your escape. Afterwards, you'll get a Where Are They Now segment on all the villains and see what was the aftermath. But you do have to complete the game 100% in order to get that ending. Or you could do what most people do, and that's put in a cheat code, and before you know it, you have completed the game just like that to show off to all of your friends that you are the one true master of video games. Guys and gals, I've done it. I've finally beaten Crash Bandicoot 100%. I'm the greatest! Comparing this game to Crash 2 and Crash 3, Crash 1 is extremely outdated as hell. I started playing Crash 2 first, then Crash 3, then finally Crash 1 so you could understand how I'm feeling. The controls and jumping feels weird, the bosses for the most part are way too easy, and the unusual way to save the game left me feeling frustrated at times cause I wanted to complete the bonus levels but I end up dying. It may seem like I don't enjoy this game, but that's entirely false. It's one of the PlayStation classics, and this game helped put Naughty Dog and Sony on the map. The game looks great for its time, the soundtrack is super catchy, and the designs of the levels are nice to look at. If you do want to try this game out, I highly suggest you play it on the Insane Trilogy as the gameplay is more updated. But that doesn't mean you should avoid this version. I recommend trying the PlayStation 1 version at least once to understand how it all began for Crash Bandicoot. And that's my take on Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation 1. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and as far as Crash 2 and 3 are concerned, we'll talk more about them in a future date. But until then, thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, share the video, and subscribe today. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. The links will be down in the description box below. I'm Justin from That PlayStation Nerd, telling you to keep calm and keep playing video games. And thank God this is over, because my voice is dying and I need to take something, otherwise it's gonna get worse. Okay, the video's done. I'm just gonna try and see if I can salvage my voice before something bad happens. See yas.